Hello guys, and welcome back to a little impromptu review. The website Banggood, that's a place you can buy electronics, sounds like it may be for something else, sent me over the Redmibook 14, which is a Ryzen 5 powered laptop. Now the thing is, it's a 3500U powered laptop, which is now last generation. And I think the question is it worth saving a little bit of money and sacrificing a bit of performance to get this laptop? Anyway, let's take a look. Now, straight up, one of the main downsides to this laptop is the fact that it comes preloaded with the Chinese version of Windows 10. If you read Chinese and speak Chinese, then hey, that's great. If not, you're going to have to install Windows 10 by yourself. I'd recommend creating an install USB and doing it that way. But just a reminder, you have to do that to be able to use this laptop. And also, the BIOS is also in Chinese. And I found using the Google Translate app to work out how to change the language to English definitely helped. So, let's get started. At first glance, the screen on this laptop looks pretty good, and I measured the brightness at being at about 280 nits, which is fine, not bad, but definitely not excellent. When it comes to the coverage of the sRGB and the Adobe RGB color gamuts, it really falls pretty short. So for content consumption, it's perfectly fine, but for content creation, absolutely out of the question. And the panel is 14 inches with a resolution of 1920 by 1080, and that has a refresh rate of 60 Hz. So no, this is not a gaming laptop. The RX Vega 8 graphics definitely leave a lot to be desired when it comes to graphical performance. The CPU performance in a laptop of this size is actually pretty good. The 3500U is a quad-core 8-thread CPU, and for day-to-day tasks is absolutely fine. But considering the TDP is only 15 watts, when you start pushing it with some demanding tasks, it really starts to throttle. There are also no configurable power options in the BIOS. Essentially what you're limited to is changing it between silent and efficient mode within Windows. While the Vega 8 graphics are definitely a step up from what you'd find integrated into an Intel processor, trying to play games at 1080p is not a very good experience. The graphics processor also appears to use 2 GB of the DDR4 memory in this laptop, leaving the system with only 6 GB of usable memory. The RAM in this laptop is also not upgradable, so you're stuck with 8 GB. But it appears as it's actually in dual channel, and there are some performance benefits to this. And using the UserBench benchmarking tool, this performs pretty high when it comes to 3500U CPUs. The single cooling fan in this system seems to be running all the time when plugged into AC power, but you're really not going to hear it unless you start doing some demanding tasks. But oh boy, when you start doing some demanding tasks, this thing gets really loud. Thankfully, the body of this laptop, even after long gaming sessions, doesn't actually get very hot. A downside I have to note is there's actually some throttling, but it's not thermal throttling, it turns out it's actually power throttling. The 15-watt 3500U also has to share that power with the Vega 8 graphics, meaning from what I've experienced, it seems to sacrifice CPU clock speed for GPU clock speed. The build quality of this laptop is definitely a strong point, and the hinge also feels solid, although you might say it's a little bit too stiff. There's very little flex in the chassis, and for the most part, it feels like a quality product. Although let's be honest, they were clearly modeling this after Apple's MacBook Pro, and every single person I initially showed this to thought this was just a MacBook Pro. With those obvious comparisons aside, at least the cooling fan in this laptop actually connects to the CPU, unlike in Apple's MacBook Airs. Thin as air this is not though. Honestly, it's not that thin or really that light, and the port selection does leave a lot to be desired. There's no Thunderbolt, there's no USB-C, there's no card reader, and there's no DisplayPort. In this laptop, you've got 2 USB 3.0 ports, HDMI, a headphone jack, and for some reason, a USB 2.0 port. I'm not exactly sure why that is, but it seems to be quite a common occurrence on these kind of Chinese laptops. Also, there's no webcam, which is definitely worth pointing out. The speakers in this laptop are sadly pretty mediocre, and they honestly don't get that loud. When it comes to the keyboard, honestly it's pretty fine to type on. For a laptop of this price range to not have a backlit keyboard just seems a little bit weird. This thing, before it went on sale on Banggood, was retailing for about 1,100 Australian dollars. You'd think for that kind of money you'd have a backlight. The trackpad is a decent size and uses Windows Precision drivers. Gestures work really good, but the actual physical clicking mechanism honestly takes quite a bit of force to click. If you open up this laptop, the only things you can upgrade are the Wi-Fi card and the M2 slot SSD. The SSD that's in here is actually pretty fast. I really wasn't expecting that. The battery life on this laptop is also pretty good. I was getting about 5 to 7 hours on a single charge, doing some basic web browsing, light gaming, and document writing. But when I stress tested the heck out of this, sometimes running 2 benchmarks at once, it got under 2 hours on a single charge. So is this worth the sale price of 816 Australian dollars, which is the equivalent of about 559 US? The new AMD Ryzen 4500U gives you about 50% better performance on average from the benchmarks I've seen, and also gives you 2 extra CPU cores. For an extra $200, you can actually get laptops now with the 4500U. And with the shortcomings of this laptop being the bad port selection, non-upgradable RAM, yes, you're stuck with 6GB of usable RAM, I honestly can't recommend this. If this becomes $200 cheaper, maybe it'll be worth your money then. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I'll have some more regular content out pretty soon. Anyway, if you do want to purchase one of these, there are links in the description. They're not affiliate, but yeah, Banggood was kind enough to send this laptop over. Not a paid review. But yeah, I get to keep this, but honestly, I've been pretty truthful with what I think about it. It's okay, but I wouldn't pay 816 Australian dollars. Anyway, have a good day.